This program is all about counting, Ngii-gindaas, mdaaswi, and the second part, starting from 10 till 90, it's going to be it's going to say mdaaswi, and it usually means 10 and more. 10 and more, 20 and more. That's what they're otherwise, the mdaaswi, if it's just mdaaswi, if it's just 10, you just say 10. And but if you're going to say mdaaswi bezhik, mdaaswi niish, all the way down on the rest of the numbers, it's going to say shi, because you're going to be saying the next name, the next thing. If you're saying ngodwaak, shi, mdaaswi, shi, niish, you're saying 122. And so because this is the faster way to learn. Once you know the formula, all you pretty much literally have to do is add and know that you count bezhik, niish, nswi, niiwin, naanan, and you'll know all the numbers. And then once you start to get to the high numbers and so forth, you can teach yourself. After you learn this page here, you can literally teach yourself how to count to 999,999. Yeah, I've never seen anybody count that far yet. But, that's how this formula is. This is how this formula is worked for. Because the formula is what makes it easy to learn how to count. Once you say from 1 to 10, you can say, well, okay, now I can probably count to 999. No problem, because here it counts to 1,000.
You have the word for like 10,000 or
10,000 would be mdaaswi, nshwaaswaak.
Oh, right.
Yeah, mdaaswi, nshwaaswi. All you gotta do is think of the times in your mind, and you can go through. Nshwaaswaak is 1,000,000. Nshwaaswaak. Ngodwaasmidna. Ngodwaasmidna is 1,000,000. Ngodwaaswaak, nsimdana. That's 1,000,000. So it's we don't usually have to count like that far, but it makes you feel comfortable once you learn your numerals, and that it brings you to a little bit more independence in your mind, because the language is of the mind. Usually, when I start a group, I usually do the 5 to 10 minutes of meditation. And when you do the meditation, when you're doing a 3-day session, you begin to become like a little child. Your brain works like a little child. When a little child sits in their cradle and watches what's going around, the little guy, he starts to hear the sounds, starts to understand the sounds, and his brain begins to recognize the language. And then when you as an adult go into meditation and you start to count, and you count your breaths, or you concentrate on your breathing, you count to 5 when you're inhaling, 8 when you're exhaling. You always make sure that the number of exhaling is higher than the number of inhaling. And when you do that for about 5 minutes or so, you bring yourself to a state of 1.1% frequency of electromagnetic pulse, and you're just like a little baby in your frequency of attention, and you literally acquire the language. You don't learn the language, you acquire it. If you've listened to the language for 3 days, your brain will literally create a space in there, or a space wherever we keep our memories. There'll be a space saved for that, and your brain will send all of that information to that space. The space has been created. Right now, when you start to learn a language, there's no space there because your brain hasn't changed itself to accommodate. This is the new scientific way, but it's a mixture of the new scientific way plus the old method of how children learn how to learn how to do that message. Like I'm teaching a language on First Nation, and the first thing we do is isolate the group for 72 hours, and then we have about 3 or 4 people walking around, and all they do is speak the language. Whatever they're doing, they speak the language. And you're sitting back and you're watching and you're listening and everything. Your brain starts to develop another narrow path in your brain, and then a space to put that language. And then if you're part native, then if there's a native blood in you, that language has been encoded right into your DNA. Because once you do something for a length of time, your knowledge becomes encoded right into your DNA. And when we say the memories of our ancestors, we don't know how to say memories of our, encoded memory. We don't know how to say that, but so we know how to say memories of our ancestors, because it's the same thing. DNA encoding is the same thing as memories of our ancestors. And so that's what anytime you hear somebody saying that, the memories of our ancestors, the DNA encoding actually happened backwards. It happened as a result of people understanding what the memories of our ancestors that we were talking about. What were we talking about? And they were saying they were actually talking about memory, encoded memory. That's what they're talking about. So boom, science moved another step forward. Mm-hmm. Because that's how there are some expressions in Ojibwe and so forth that are not in English or any other language. It's the same thing with Chinese or Japanese. There's expressions in those languages that are not in English, because English is a very primitive language, and it's a language that was born from war and confrontation. That's where the language originated. The other languages originated from the heart, and they opened up. They connected this brain and then this brain. This brain is connected to ego, and this brain is you're taking in information without the filtering. When you're taking direction with your heart, when you're touching your heart to take information, you're taking information that isn't going to be censored by the brain in that. Because the ego is very careful what it allows into your hard drive. Because again, the brain works exactly like a computer. It works exactly the same way. The brain does not know what's real and what's not real. When you daydream or when you envision somebody attacking you verbally or verbally most of the time, because verbally is the more dangerous one than physical. Emotional pain is forever. Physical pain it heals. Emotional pain just goes deeper. So your brain will always put that as reality happening when you're thinking about it. Your brain is, oh my goodness, this is really happening. I got to prepare the body, and so forth. And so you're getting filtered information, and a lot of times you're being filtered. And even though you're just thinking about pain, somebody hurting you, you're just thinking about it. The brain records it as real. So your brain prepares your body to experience that as real. And that's the reality that hits you. And this is a scientific fact that I learned to be able to, I guess, illustrate what the importance of language, and to be able to let you know what you are losing out on if you don't know the language, because you're using a different language that has not too much of kindness and love in it. If you're using a war language, you're getting a different kind of a language. So that's how they asked me to develop another language on my First Nation, and that's what I came up with. I had to study for about 6 years. I'm like, nothing wants to get in there. I've trained my ego. Get in. Any questions or any comments from that?
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we'll just go through the act of saying each word. We'll start off with one. So right after me, you can say bezhik, niish, nswi, niiwin, naanan, ngodwaaswi. The best way to say the words when there's an N in front of them, you pretend you're going to say something that starts with an N. You just barely just go, say you're going to say no. You say ngodwaaswi. Instead of saying the word no, you say ngodwaaswi, and it comes out perfect like that. You know, you're going to say an N word, then all of a sudden you just say the rest of it. Niizhwaaswi, nshwaaswi, zhaangswi, mdaaswi. This one here, we go from 10 plus the letters all over again. Mdaaswi, niish, Niishtana, niish, nsimdana, nswi, niimdana, what's nsimdana? I can't see with my glasses. Nsimdana, nswi. I'll say the different ones as I go along. Niimdana, bezhik, naanmidna, ngodwaaswi. You guys are having a hard time? We'll just make it easier. We'll always say one after this. Naanmidna, bezhik, ngodwaasmidna, bezhik, niizhwaasmidna, bezhik, nshwaasmidna, bezhik, zhaangsimdana, bezhik, bezhik. The word is bezhik. You always say bay as in Bay Street. Bezhik. The two eyes is always niish. There's if there was a Z there instead of an S, it would be niish. This one is niish. And so any word that you're having a hard time with, let me know. But usually when you learn this one, and I put the you don't need the SHI in front of your letters when you're doing it yourself. I just did it because it stops me from writing a whole bunch of times on the board or whatever I'm using, and it's easier when you do it right on the paper. Excuse me, right on the paper. And so we go to the hundreds now, and we're going to say Ngodwaak, mdaaswi, niish, Ngodwaak, mdaaswi, nswi, and so forth like that. I'm going to try to stay with the same word. Maybe naanan would be easier to say, or niiwin. One of those would be easier for you to remember. But I'm going to be saying the hundreds. So any of these words that you're saying, like Ngodwaak, you're saying 122, 111, or 12. Those are the words you're saying. Niizhwaak, mdaaswi, bezhik. Nswaak, Niishtana, niish. Niiwaak, nsimdana, zhaangswi. zhaangswi. Okay. Nshwaaswaak, niiwin. 904. 904. Yeah. Zhaangswaak, mdaaswi, mdaaswaak. Mdaaswaak, mdaaswaak. I'm getting myself. Niishtana, niish. I'll go the easy way for now. Main word is mdaaswaak. When you say just the word itself, you don't say shit because you're going to you've reached the end of the lesson, nshwaaswi, and so forth. Some of these letters are going to be, you're going to get so good at this, after a while, you're not going to you're not going to have to remember certain things. You'll see the picture and it'll come to you. Like nswi. If there was 3 people, you'd say nswi, bezhik. And if something, if you heard a sound 3 times, you'd say sing, Ngii-gindaas. The bells rung 3 times. Ngii-gindaas. Sing means it sounded, it rang. And niiwin, you'd say niiwin 4 times. You'd say niiwin. If the bell only rang once, you'd say ngodwaak. What would I be saying when I say ngodwaak?
It only rang once?
Yes. Where did that come from? You never heard that before, but where did it come from just now? It came from somewhere. It's in your being. It came from somewhere. All you did was trust what your heart heard and said it. Yeah. Okay. Niizhwaaswi. The words change when you learn the root word and everything. Once you have it in your mind, once you have it in your head, you can say niizhwaasmidna. Mama. This boy is 7 years old. Niizhwaasmidna. Baboon is 7 years. 7 years. Baboon. Niizhwaasmidna.
7 winters?
Yeah. Exactly. I see. I didn't say 7 winters. See, you got it. Yeah. See, that's how this program works. I'm trying to teach it in a way that you're going to trust your heart. It's going to come to your heart. You're going to trust it, and that's what you're going to say. And that's why I'm trying to really emphasize that we practice for 7 years, 7 days, 72 hours, 72 hours, and we all speak the language, and we try to show the picture of the little baby, 2 or 3 months old, sitting in the cradle, and the baby's name for baby is Abenoji. And if you know the meaning of the Abenoji, it helps you learn the language of numbers. Abe means it just lays there. It can't really even move on its own. It just lays there. Abe. It's like this, except it's not inanimate. It's animate. It's inanimate. It's not animate. If it was animate, you'd say abe manda. Abemova. It just sits there. It can't move unless I pick it up. A bit, and so forth. So the baby just lays there. A bit noji. Noji is it makes everybody else busy. It just lays there, but because it lays there, everybody else is busy as a result. A very appropriate name for a baby. A bit noji. No, and so that's why when it's that's why they built the cradle to set up like this, so that it would be able to be on a higher ground someplace, or hanging from the corner of the teepee or the wigwam, and then it would be leaning there, and it would hear all this commotion all around it and everything. In social work or early childhood development, you would probably learn that the cognitive recognition starts to happen when the child is about 18 months to 22 months. In Ojibwe learning, Ojibwe knowledge, the baby starts to understand and take in information in the mother's womb. And the baby listens to mother's heartbeat for 9 months. And when the mother wakes up, the baby wakes up because the heartbeat changes. When the mother gets really excited, the baby inside gets really excited because the heart speeds up. And when the mother gets tired again, gets really drowsy, her heart slows down, the baby starts to. Everything that happens to the baby happens to the moment, happens to the baby inside. And so those are the things, like when you, how many of you have gone to a powwow? And everybody, when you go to a powwow, you go on the grounds for a while, you hear this drum beat, and if the drummer is really good, they hit the drum according to the heartbeat of a relaxed person. So people, it doesn't matter who it is, non-native, Chinese, Asian, Japanese, it doesn't matter who goes on the grounds. When they hear after a while, they say, "Oh, geez, does that ever feel good, that music? My goodness, that really makes me feel good." No matter who it is, it affects them because the drummers know how to beat according to the heartbeat of a pregnant woman that's relaxed and happy. So that's how that works. When you see a whole bunch of people go to a rock concert, and the heartbeat, the beat is really fast, the spirit becomes excited. That's why there's riots at the concerts. Everybody gets so excited that the spirit goes into a frenzy, and it has to release somehow. So people get into a really excited thing that happens, and that's why some people can go to a lot of concerts, because they get hooked onto that sound. How many of you have stood in front of an audience that's cheering a band? Say there's 30, 40,000 people in the audience. How many of you have done that?
Like that many?
Yeah. If you've stood on stage, you will understand that you don't have to even hear the music to be able to get into that energy of that music. The energy hits you, and you sing out that energy. The people send the energy back to you again, and it comes back double, and it really, really freaking drives you. So to illustrate some of the things that happen with the language is to be able to understand how you're going to use this language, and what's going to give you the memory of the language, and why you should use the language. What we lost when we don't use the language anymore. A lot of people, Asian people, they know how to move energy. They know how to look after air. They are the caretakers of air. Everything that they do, it has to do with moving energy, air. You have martial arts, it has to do with air. And memory, what you call reflex memory. Reflex memory is actually air. So that's how they do that. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
It all in.
It's in there. Give me that energy. Yeah. It's really the understanding of the language. Like some people say "niigwech" means thank you. It does. Niigwech means thank you. But when you know what it actually really means, it means more to you. Because when you say "niigwech," you're actually saying he gives. Miigwe. He gives. The tricky thing is, most of us know how to give. Most of us know how to do that. Very few of us know how to receive. When I was, oh no, what did I do? What do you want now? You know, especially when your husband walks in and says, "Honey, what did I do now?" So the meaning of miigwech is he gives, I receive. The I receive is the important part, because unless you know how to receive, you don't receive in a very good way. You know, so a lot of times we feel differently when somebody. We're really happy when we're able to give other people. We're very good with that. And the sad thing is we don't know how to receive. So that's why miigwech means is very important. Very important to know that, and to know it for yourself. Because when you're ready for good things come. You know, you are literally manifesting yourself with the language and everything. You know, so comments?
For sharing.
Did you say number one was bezhik or no?
Bezhik.
Okay, because bezhik is one in Cree.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Bezhik.
Bezhik, nisho, nisto, neo, noalan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're trying to I'm trying to teach them how to count to 999,999. I don't know how to say 1 million that fast. The SHI at the end of after 10 or mdaaswaak, it just means and more. It just means add on. So if you're just saying just 10, you just say mdaaswaak. Mdaaswaak, everybody say mdaaswaak.
Mdaaswaak.
Niishtana.
Niishtana.
Nsimdana. Niimdana.
Niimdana.
Naanmidna.
Naanmidna.
Ngodwaasmidna. Niizhwaasmidna.
Niizhwaasmidna.
Nshwaasmidna.
Nshwaasmidna.
Zhaangsimdana.
Zhaangsimdana.
Ngodwaaswaak.
Ngodwaaswaak.
Ngodwaak.
Ngodwaak.
Yeah, I looked at the wrong end of this sentence here. How come it says that? No, yeah. So the SH is if you're continuing on with mdaaswaak, bezhik, Niishtana, bezhik, and so forth. That's the only reason for the SHI. Not to get anybody mixed up, but to get everything easier. To know that you're going to be ready to say the next word all the way down to mdaaswaak, Ngodwaak, or whatever what we're just trying to say. I'm having the group here try to be able to come up with the term for rang 3 times, because you'd say 3 times and sing. You say it in a different way, but it still is saying the same thing that's already in your system. So it's like I'm sorry, your name again, Amy. And like Amy illustrated and showed us, sometimes you don't really haven't heard the word before, but it comes to you. It comes to you through the heart because it's in there already. So I'm trying to get used to be open to the messages from the memory in your heart, to be able to acquire this language further. A lot of the students that have been in the room, like Tom or name on a few other people, they say, well, they've seen a one word before, and they say, well, does this word mean the same thing as this? Like "bindigenste." Bindigenste means to bring in the wood. And one of the students said, well, I see that word all over the place on the doors around here. Does it mean to bring something in? On his own, right? Because he was familiar with the word, and he was familiar with and he trusted enough to be able to say it. And that's the big part. When you're able to meditate and get yourself ready for the language, you're not shy to be able to say what comes to your mind. A lot of times we block our minds because we don't want to look foolish or we don't want to stand out. So we block our minds. What you're doing when you meditate to the language is you're opening up your mind, and you know that nobody's going to laugh at you, because when you're experimenting and you make a mistake is a good thing, because it means you are still taking a step and learning something. In some instances, like me, when I went to school, I didn't open my mouth too many times because you stand out in front of everybody. And so it took me about 2 months to know that Native kids, they didn't raise their hands because they didn't quite sure the answer. And you had to know the trick. The trick was raise your hand first and think about the answer. That's what everybody else was doing. The question would be asked you. Haven't even heard the you haven't even heard the answer to the question yet. And like me, I had to close my eyes sometimes to think, and sit there. They're listening. The teacher said, "Lorney Bob, wake up." It was really funny. Anyway, and not at the time though. Anyone having any trouble with any of these words here or over there? Again, you get ready, you get your mouth ready to say the N word, no, or neen, or any of those words, and then you say the word instead. Ngodwaasmidna. Nshwaasmidna. It totally helps you say the whole thing when you say the first thing. You put your lips right in the first place. It helps you to say the whole thing right. A lot of people, a lot of the dialect difference in if you're going to see dialect differences, sometimes is that people take a shortcut. Sometimes they won't say the N word, the N-A, or they'll say like if some people say my name Beethoven. They say totally different. I say Beethoven because I don't leave any of the, especially with my name. I mean, come on. If you're going to say it, say it right. Any questions or comments from anyone? I'm watching the time because I don't want to go too much overtime. The mdaaswaak is a word that you'll probably use a long time, and the open door to learning for yourself is to be able to start to experiment. When you hear a word, somebody saying something like niiwin, you'll automatically know that that's 4. Niiwin, that's 4. And so forth. So all the words are the same way, but once you learn the main word, it'll seem to ring. It'll come from somewhere within yourself, and it's important to trust that. You'll put about 3 months faster learning when you start to trust yourself to say the words. And the story I put out for today had to do with how we present ourselves when we're in ceremony. And like me, it's very easy because I was taught how to present myself when I was about 2 years old. Today, you probably hear about people going to ceremonies. Oh, I'm going to go to this ceremony. I'm going to go to the full moon ceremony. I'm going to go to the water ceremony. When I was a child, very long ago, we did things. We did everything in ceremony. When we ate and when we cooked a meal, it was done in ceremony. Because we believe that when we eat, they eat. And when we say niizhwaak, there's a word jiwa in there, niizhwaak. So that means you're not only cooking for the people here, you're also cooking for the people there. And there's a lot of times you will probably hear people say, there's no word, we don't have a word for goodbye. But probably the most important word in our language is anishinaabemowin. Anishinaabemowin. What does that mean? No, anishinaabemowin. That means whatever happens next time when we're partying. Anishinaabemowin. It's up to him whether we see each other again over here or when we see each other over there. The anishinaabemowin means that we've already accepted that. Our idea of journeying on the other side, we're raised with that. We're raised with that knowledge. My grandparents, my grandfather, he went to grade 3, and he ran away about 3 times. The 3rd time he ran away, they gave up on him. They had better things to do than chase the little guy out through the bushes for weeks at a time. So, and this little guy, he had training. He was a trapper's kid. He knew how to survive in the bush. Usually that's you know how to do that since you're about 4 years old. You can survive in the wintertime. What you do is you go with your little snowshoe and you make a big pile of snow. And you leave it for about 2 hours, and you come back and it's hardened. You make a hole in there, then you put a whole bunch of ferns in there, dried ferns, and then you go sleep. And he knew how to do these things, so sometimes it would snow and then everything would be covered, and they'd walk right by him. They wouldn't, So they stopped looking for him. So he never lost his language because they punished him every day to speak English, and he refused. That is the only reason and the only way that I'm here today. He said, imagine this, these little guys, my grandkids are going to know how to speak this language. Yeah, so so he got punished every day. And he would stand upstairs to the attic. He'd go up there and he'd repeat all those words over and over again. And he didn't forget the language. And some of the, as a result of that, some of the words that you're going to learn are also ceremony words. Like niiwin, that's a ceremonial word. We hardly ever have a sweat lodge without saying that at least 4 or 5 times. And miigwech, we can go through life without saying at least 2 or 3 times a day. But what we're saying when we say miigwech is we're speaking directly to creation itself, and we're communicating that, and so we learn those words. And when I was asked to teach this language, I figured I guess I might as well teach the original language, the original meaning of the language, not the watered down modern version where we say it, try to say it as close to English as we can. I try to pretend that English isn't here yet, so that you may learn, you know, because there are a few words that have come from the English language. You know, the badons, you know, that's French probably. Badons, pardon?
The days of the week.
Badons. The badons is la bâton.
Oh, but
Yeah, we didn't know what that was until a little French guy come along and said la bâton. So, oh, the badons. And that's exactly how it happened. That was it. No, just kidding. Any short time for questions, comments? Miigwech. We'll have a refresher on this. Remind me, we're going to have a refresher on this in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
Miigwech.
Miigwech. Miigwech, yeah.